Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. So today we're going to talk about consumption billing, understand the fundamentals of this model, and show how it gets represented in the different artifacts that we have in the system, etc. I'm joined here by my colleague. My name is Yoav, and I'm a product manager for Elastic Cloud Billing, and I'm joined here by Suyog, who's my engineering counterpart. What we'll cover today is first starting with a little bit of understanding the fundamentals of consumption billing in a relatively high level. We're going to continue by talking about resource-based pricing, which is one way to price SaaS offering, a way that we think is a good way, and explain some examples around that. And we're going to then talk about the Elastic Consumption Unit, or ECU, which is a bit of a tactical aspect that it's important to understand in terms of how to look at usage statements and how to understand the bill and what kind of benefits that provides. We're going to finalize with prepaid consumption model, which is one way to do consumption billing, and we're going to cover the mechanics of how that works. So starting with consumption billing and with the risk of slight oversimplification of things, if you think about different types of selling models of selling software, there's one-time billing, where basically you pay to own a product. This has been typically used in the past for purchasing perpetual licenses. And it does feature a large upfront commitment, and basically just like owning anything, right? If you get it and you don't get value out of it, then that's money lost in this case. Then comes subscription billing, which, if to continue the analogy, it's basically renting a product rather than buying it, which does allow you to spread the commitment over time and have smaller incremental payments. It is still a use it or lose it. So if you're not getting any value of it, you're still going to be up for payment, whether that's monthly or whether that's annually at renewal. But you do have a way to mitigate your chances of not using it. And this is how software subscription works in general. And then there's consumption billing, which is frankly is not anything new. If you think about your phone bill or utility bill, that's pure consumption. And even more relevant, so cloud bill is basically based on consumption, where you consume on demand and you pay in arrear, which is basically pay for the previous month's usage or previous period usage. It does feature a lot of advantages where you pay only for what you use, and it does allow you to consume flexibly, spike in consumption, and reduce it without having very large bill implications as a result of that. Now let's look at how does consumption billing work in a little bit more detail. Broadly, it's divided into three parts. First of all, you got to meter the usage of your application. In the specific case of Elastic, the majority of the usage or the metered usage is going to be the instance uptime or the cluster uptime in terms of how many gigabytes of RAM per unit of time have been consumed, which is kind of like how you buy compute in general. That's typically 80% of the cost. But we do also meter data transfer either between the nodes of a cluster or outside of the cluster. And we meter for storage that is used for longer term snapshot backups and things like that. The next step after you collect all the detailed metered usage across your footprint is basically to rate that or basically to price that. Pricing the resources in this particular case, we're going to talk about this in the next couple of slides there. So let's hold on to that in terms of how we apply. But once you have the rated and metered usage, you aggregate them, and then you basically have a particular charge that that the customer should incur. In this case, whether paying it directly or whether that's deducted from a balance, depending on the model. And we'll talk about the different models as well moving forward. So let's go to the next part of more details about pricing and how we go about pricing. If you think about the common approach to pricing, if you're a security company, you're likely to charge by the agent or by the endpoint. And if you're a logging company, you might charge by per ingest, etc. But there are a few challenges that have to do with it. It is a good model, but there are some challenges. So think about security, for example. If you're running 1,000 virtual machines today and you're deploying your agent across them, That's great, but if you're considering moving to Kubernetes and running Docker containers, and suddenly you have 20,000 of these containers, that's going to be at 20x of that cost, unless you come to a special agreement or something like that. And similarly, if you're doing logging and you're paying by the ingest, and you got 10 terabytes of data that get ingested, it doesn't really differentiate whether this is high value observability data or that's basically testing that you're doing with a new data source, et cetera. The bill's going to be likely high unless you're able to carve out different kind of concessions, such as this is for development purpose, et cetera. And although these models work well and are still considered consumption, the pitfall that could happen in these cases is that it's easy to size when you're starting, you know the number of agents, for example, et cetera, but it gets complex down the road as you're trying to shift to different technologies, et cetera. And it could also slow the pace of innovation as a result of that, because you're going to be very hesitant to try things out if there are going to be significant cost implications as part of that. And in order to deal with that and thinking very deeply about how we want to price our offering, we came up with the approach of resource-based pricing, which means that our pricing is really based on the cost of the resources that are used to instrument the use case or the application of the user. So for example, if you're running on AWS on an i3 instance that has 1 gigabyte of RAM, this and that amount of CPU per that unit, and this amount of disk, and that is in US East 1 at the platinum feature level, then that would cost you that amount per hour. And it doesn't really matter whether you're running it for enterprise search or observability or security. At the end of the day, you're running these resources, and that's what you pay for. And that actually provides two benefits. One of them is, as we innovate and squeeze more out of the infrastructure, you, the customer, basically are in a position to benefit from that by being able to run more workloads on an existing infrastructure without paying more. And on the other hand, it doesn't really slow you down from trying new use cases, because as long as you keep your capacity at bay, you're able to try different things out within that footprint and not going to have a significant cost increase as a result of that. So that was a little bit about resource-based pricing. Let's move to the next concept, which is the elastic consumption unit. And as I said, this is more of a tactical one that just helps with more billing transparency and estimating cost. Think of an ECU as a unit of some currency that is $1, and I know that the analogy to crypto probably pops into mind. So if you're a customer over the course of March, April, and May, as in this example, you may start as a monthly customer and you may consume 100 worth of ECUs, which is going to be exactly $100 worth of capacity within that month, but you may sign a contract in April that grants you 10%. And in this case, you're still going to consume exactly the same, but your cost base is actually going to be just $90 in that particular case. And think about, like, if the next month you're doing an add-on and you're buying some more ECUs, this time in euro with 10%, then your cost base is going to be 76.5. So looking purely at your billing situation is going to make it hard to understand how your capacity actually changes. But as you can see, the capacity actually hasn't changed across the time. And being able to report in a normalized elastic consumption unit simplifies the transaction of purchasing credits and also allows to track the usage over time without the artifacts of different billing situation and credits and any kind of things like that. The last thing that I want to cover before we switch over to a demo and look how these things actually reflect in the UI and in the statements that we have is the billing model. So obviously, when consumption comes to mind, monthly consumption or on-demand consumption is the first one that obviously is thought of. And that is basically you're consuming and then you're paying any kind of amount according to your consumption over time. You're going to get invoiced every month, and your bill is going to vary basically according to your usage with no discount. And that's a model that we offer today and have offered for a while. A new model that we're offering is called prepaid consumption, where you're able to pre-purchase ECUs or credits for use, pay for them in advance, and in exchange, you can negotiate a discount. And then we track the balance and deplete the balance according to the consumption over time, which reduces the amount of invoices and payments over that period, and also allows to gain a certain discount where your cost basis is going to be lower if you know that you're going to spend this and that amount in that given time. And this is not dissimilar to how you buy capacity reservation of compute on any cloud provider in that particular case. With that, let's switch over and look how all this plays out and do a little bit of a demo. We'll pass it over to you, Suyog.
Thanks, Yoav. We're going to start our demo from the elastic.co pricing page. And this page gives you lots of information about all the different subscription levels we offer on Elastic Cloud and all the different features that you can unlock as you pick a particular level. Now, this also has a lot of resources for us to understand the whole consumption-based or resource-based pricing that Yoav just explained. So let's take a look at a couple of them here. The first one is what we call as a pricing table. So here you can see, I'm going to switch to AWS so we're consistent with the examples that we showed on the slides. We're going to pick AWS as a cloud provider, and you can see all the resources that we have that we offer on Elastic Cloud, and these are the base units, and these are the building blocks where you can create your Elastic deployments for your use case. For example, let's pick the i3 instance that we showed off in the slide. Here, it's AWS provider on i3, and then if I'm on a platinum subscription, I get charged $0.0307 price for GB of RAM capacity per hour. So the resources here are instance capacity. But you can also have other resources like Yoav mentioned, for example, data transfer out, snapshot API. They are metered and measured in a different way, but they're all resources for us, and they all count towards how your usage-based billing gets calculated. So we showed a couple of factors that influence the pricing. One of them is the data center. So let's say for AWS, we go to the Tokyo region, and you can see the same i3 instance now is a little more in terms of price. And then this table gives you all the variations of the different cloud providers, as Elastic Cloud is available across multiple cloud providers. And you can even search across these different providers if you have a deployment on Azure, if you have a deployment on AWS. Okay, so now let's move to another resource that you have at your disposal. This is called the pricing calculator. Think of this as a deployment builder. As we showed the base units or the resources, you can use that to deploy any use case. For example, let's say you're an observability use case. Now let's go to AWS again, US East 1, and pick the IO optimize, which is internally an i3 instance. Now you can see for a platinum subscription, you get 0.0307. That's the cost for you per hour. Now, this is very proportionate to how many resources you use. So for example, let's go now to 2 GB of RAM. We just scaled up because our ingestion increased. Now you can see your cost double per hour. And here you see that your deployment is not just Elasticsearch or one or two resources. As you add components, as you build on your use case, you get charged based on only that you use for. For example, you can say, I need machine learning nodes because I want to use that feature and capability. So you can add that, and you can scale up to like 8 GB of RAM for the machine learning feature. And then you see that the price per hour increases. So how we calculate your final bill every month is that we add up all the components, all the resources, and for deployment capacity, we calculate by multiplying the amount of GB of RAM that you used times the number of hours you've had that instance on for consuming that. So this is how much you've used and how much you're going to pay for. It's very transparent, and it is basically proportionate, as I said, to your use case and to the amount of data you want to ingest or the features that you want to consume. All right, so now let's move to the cloud portal. So this is your one-stop shop. When you have access to our software, the SaaS software, you have access to this cloud portal, and this is for managing your deployment as well as your billing. Now, if you can see that I have a couple of deployments that I'm running, and the same deployment pricing page that I saw, you can see this in the console for your deployment, and you can see how, for example, adding a machine learning node impacts your bill. So we just moved, let's say, from 1 GB of machine learning node to 2 GB, then that impacts our price just based on the resources that I use for however long that I want to use it. And this is very important because we want to provide this transparency, the flexibility as you explore all the different features that the Elastic Stack and the solutions provide. You should be able to move across them and see how much you're actually spending by using the resources. Okay, so now this user is a monthly pay-as-you-go customer. So that means that they have a credit card on file, and while they consume resources, we're billing them in arrears. So at the end of the month, we aggregate all the different resources, the dimensions, the GB per hour per RAM, and then we calculate all that and we charge your credit card. So that's the pay-as-you-go model. One other thing I want to show here is the subscription picker. As you saw that we have multiple subscriptions, and using the subscriptions, you can self-service move to a different level. You can see that the searchable snapshot, which was released a couple of months ago, is a great feature, especially for an observability use case. Helps me ingest a lot of logs without having to worry about even clearing them or curating them. So that's available in the enterprise feature. In the enterprise level, I can just self-subscribe to it using this portal. Now let's look at the other page, which is extremely useful in your portal, which is a usage page. This gives you up to the hour, the metered usage, and this comes to the heart of the resource-based usage concept that we talked about. You can see here that I have multiple deployments, and the Elasticon demo deployment that I just started is very small, so you only pay for that part, and based on the number of hours it's been running. And you can see here how this helps you across different budgets, different use cases. So I have a small demo environment, and I know exactly how much I'm paying for. I have a very long-running clickstream deployment, which has been running for about 190 hours. And you can see all the different components that make up the deployment, how much the breakdown of each resource, and all the different resource type, for example, the data transfer, etc. So this page gives you all the information you need to budget for your capacity, see how much you've already been consuming, what the month-to-date usage is, and if there are any credits that you've been given from Elastic, you can also see all of this information here. Now, you can also say, I'm doing some exercise, so I'd like to know for a particular range of my Elastic deployment or the range where this is active, how much of resources did I consume and how much of that contributed in terms of the dollar amount. So you can do that here as well. Also, you can slice by the products. Since you have multiple deployments that each have different products, you can see group by products, how many of these are contributing to your costs. So this is a great one-stop resource for all your billing questions inside of the portal. Now, let's switch over to another user. And in this session, I've logged in as a user who is purchased an annual subscription with us. And I'll get that into in a second, but you can already see that there are 4 instances or 4 deployments they're running for the different use cases. Now, let's go to the account and billing section for this user. In the billing overview, you can see here the concept of ECUs that Yoav explained. So this user wanted to go for an annual subscription. So in exchange of the commitment for a yearly, they get a discount typically, and you could prepay and buy ECUs. So in our example here, it's 45,000 ECUs that this person bought. And you can see, for example, all the details of like, the sales order in your cloud portal. Now, as Yoav said, the flexibility and the power of ECUs is that it's this universal currency. It's this, credits that you use across multiple use cases. I've already, deployed, as I said, enterprise search, some cluster for my product analytics, and then for endpoint security, I'm collecting these events in a different cluster. But as you can see, ECUs are just being deducted regardless of what use cases I use it for. So I started with 45,000 ECUs, and my month-to-date usage across all the different use cases, and then I'm slowly kind of burning down or drawing down from my initial purchased credits. And this is very important, as we said, tailor to your budget, tailor to your use case. You can go across different use cases, and it's very powerful and flexible, and it gives you a good view into the exact consumption of all the different deployments that you have. Finally, I want to wrap up this demo by showing the billing history page, which is as billed. If the usage page was real-time exploration of all your usage information or the resource consumption information, billing history is the as billed. As we bill you monthly, did you pay by your balance, or did you did you deplete your credits and you had to pay by overages? This is the page for you to understand that information. You also have a usage statement, which I'm going to quickly download. And if you see a PDF statement comes up, which tells you information that you can then show it to your finance department, get it approved, etc. So this is as we said, the billing portal inside of your cloud console. So with that demo, I'm going to go back to our presentation. And Yoav, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, thank you, Suyog. That's a great demo. So in terms of the key takeaways, just to summarize the 4 concepts that we talked about, consumption billing as a concept really aligns with your goal as a customer. You pay only for what you use and have the flexibility to increase or decrease it without having long-term consequences on your bill, as long as it's within your budget. Resource-based pricing provides you a uniform dimension for rating regardless of the use case. You can try new things at any time, and they're all going to be based on the same dimensions of pricing, which are the resources that you use and not the specific use case. ECUs, or elastic consumption unit, help normalize your usage for better tracking, for planning, and for forecasting and for transparency. And the billing model that we provide, such as pay-as-you-go or on-demand and prepaid consumption, give you the flexibility to control your spend and to control your payment terms and negotiate discount in order to get a better value out of the product. With that, I'd like to thank you very much for attending this session, and have a great day.